Hey YouTube, I'm Blaze, and today we're going to have a look at the Droideka's Ultimate Guide. So the update with the Droidekas released yesterday alongside the TX-130 tank and the General Skywalker skin for Anakin Skywalker, which was actually a pretty cool skin, and a couple more clone skins as well as some other tweaks and balances. You can check out the patch notes in the description, but in today's video we're going to be focusing on the Droidekas, and we're going to start off with their base stats. They've got 350 health regularly, which can be upgraded using star cards. Stick around to the end of the video to have a look at the star cards I use and I would recommend. Their main weapons are pretty powerful, short range, however they have huge damage fall off. They do also have splash damage, which is quite helpful, although it's nothing huge. It is enough to ward away any lightsaber users though. In terms of health regen, the health regen speed is pretty much the same as any other enforcer. That is pretty slow, but once again it can be upgraded, and this guy does take 5 seconds to start regenning, which is kind of long. It's as long as Vader, for example, but it's nothing too bad. In terms of movement speed, these guys are practically immobile. However, their first ability does really help out with that, because it allows them to change form into a rolling ball like we see in the movies, and they move really fast in this, and they can actually also jump whilst they're in this animation, and their jump actually takes a while to charge up, and then they bounce over, and it is actually a pretty good jump, and you can reach high areas. However, the main problem with this is not only when you finish the animation, so you're rolling and then you stop to shoot someone, you do actually have to wait 3 or 4 seconds before you can retransform, leaving you a bit vulnerable if you realise you're in a sticky situation. And I think the main problem with the Droidekas overall is that the animation to start rolling, the animation to stop rolling is extremely long, leaving you plenty of time to be shot at. And whilst 350 health is a bit, it's not that much, and you will get taken out a lot of the time if you come across more than 2 or 3 enemies. Even if they're just like AI or bots, they can destroy you pretty quickly, which is a shame, and I think that's something DICE should patch. But otherwise, obviously, you can't avoid having to use this ability, because without it, you're practically immobile. And it is quite useful, but make sure to transform in situations where you aren't in front of a group of enemies. Behind them or to the side of them on flanks is usually preferable, for example. And especially with your high movement, the way you really want to be using this is going behind enemies on flanks, retransforming and using your overcharge and just mowing down enemies. That's the best way you want to be playing as these guys, I feel. And then we're just going to jump straight into the second ability, which is the Overcharge. And what the Droideka does now is that he takes out his weapons and he overcharges them, fires at them at the same time. It's pretty rapid, no heat build up. So the way I usually use this is I start firing until my weapon's about to overheat, and then I pop Overcharge, which allows me to fire for days on end. And the increased fire rate you get from this Overcharge also allows you to aim for heads a bit better, because it won't be that punishing if you miss a shot. But this doesn't actually help your range at all, really, because at long range the Droideka literally cannot do anything with his main blasters or the Overcharge. Generally, the best way to use this ability is when enemies can't shoot at you, so you can use this obviously on a flank. It also works if you're using it when you've got your shield up, however you still will be taking damage to this shield, and because the animation to start the Overcharge is just long enough for you to take too much damage, that's why I would suggest using it when enemies aren't shooting at you. It does also slightly cancel the animation, shorten the animation really, when you're retransforming into the shoot mode. So when you're rolling, then you stop and you activate the Overcharge, and this works with the shield as well. It kind of happens semi at the same time. That works pretty well as well, but generally for low health targets you can usually just kill them definitely with headshots with your main blaster in less time than you will if you overcharge and then start shooting at them. And then the third and final ability is the shield. This shield actually has a decent amount of health, however be aware that your hitbox in general and the shield's hitbox is absolutely huge, so you will take a lot of shots. Ion weapons will completely rip through this, obviously, as will tanks. The TX-130 will completely annihilate you, no matter how much health you have. There are 4 main ways I like to use the shield. Firstly, I like to use it aggressively, so you're rolling, you hit the shield just as you demech, or you just hit the shield and it'll automatically demech for you. And you'll basically immediately have your shield, you'll be able to shoot for a bit and then roll away, and you shouldn't take too much damage. And that's usually pretty good if you're expecting to receive a lot of damage and you definitely want to stay alive for a bit longer. However, there are better ways to use this, and the second way is as a kind of softener mid-fight, and this is reactively, so you're in a fight, you're taking damage, so you just pop the shield as you normally would, and you keep on firing, and that means that you have a lot of shield health which gets burned through, and you keep on shooting off that, and hopefully the enemies you're facing off against should be dead. This still won't work against a high-numbered group of enemies, as they'll just mow you down instantly. The third way I like to use it is preemptively, so I've come into a position where I've got enemies on both sides, however neither of them can see me, and I pop a shield so that I can turn my back to one group of enemies to fire at another, so that if those enemies do turn around and spot me, they'll hit the shield instead of my health, and I'll still have time to react and get away. And then the fourth way I use it is just before I'm getting away, if I've taken high amounts of damage or I just want to escape, is I pop the shield, and this will allow them to fire at the shield, and the enemies will probably overheat their blasters, which means you'll be able to transform and roll away and they won't hit you whilst you're rolling away. And this is probably the safest option, is to just save your shield for at the end of a fight getting away, because survivability with these Droidekas is actually pretty hard. Although you have a high movement speed to get away from an encounter, actually transforming into the rolling ball is very lengthy, and you will usually die during that animation most of the time. In terms of combos and strategies, the only combo I can really think of is roll into a fight, pop your shield and your overload and go ham, and that works, but I mean, you can usually do just as much just with your main cannons, and the overload and shield can be used separately just as well. And the strategy is you actually want to play a hit and run strategy where you roll around, you look for a target, you jump in, you assassinate that target, then you quickly roll away again. And the other way you can play is defensively, so you can set up on an objective, and you can use the fact that your damage is very high at close range, and preferably this is an enclosed objective, and you just sit there, wait for the enemies and mow them down as they come. That works pretty well as well. And now finally onto star cards. The 3 star cards I like to use, and I think you should use too, are firstly Survivalists, so that your health regens a bit faster, in fact a lot faster, and this is really helpful because as a Droideka you're moving across the map really fast, so you don't want to be waiting around waiting for your health to regen. That helps a lot, I think. However, out of the 3, if you want to replace it, I think that's the weakest card. Next up, we have Enforcer Training, which gives you back health on each kill, and this is extremely helpful, because when you're actually in a fight, you've got your shield up and your overload, and you're mowing people down, you're probably already going to be on low health from when you demeched, so when you were rolling and you stopped to shoot at people, during that animation you'll probably have got shot a bit, and you want to be able to regain the health before you have to re-go the animation to roll out of there. And so that's why I think that's actually a really useful card. And then finally we have Battle Hardened, which just gives you extra health up to 420, which is an absolute godsend, because the Droidekas literally need more health in order to actually go anywhere because of the animations again. Okay, I think that's going to wrap up that video. Please let me know in the comments whether you want me to do a Mythbusters on the Droidekas next week, or a TX130 guide. And other than that, leave a like, subscribe, bye.